gentlemen, this Belgian T-15 is holding a point of valuable strategic importance to the Belgians and the Germans. As you can see, this is the only point for literally yards around that can be crossed by vehicles. Look at this, just huge river stretching as far as the eye can see. So this tank holding this point is crucial for the Belgian forces right now. So, we've got a game of bolt action, 1,100 points. We've got T-15 on the table. In this building here, we've got the Force Publique, with that guy stood on the outside to remind us. The rest of the unit, well, the whole unit's inside, so they're just over here for now. Peeking out of the windows of this building, which I believe it has one or two windows on there somewhere. However, the forces, the Germans, are also present on the battlefield. So, would the German commander like to tell us what they have on the table right now?
We've got a full unit of Air Grenadiers with a submachine gun and a light machine gun. They're hidden. They're regular. We've got a veteran medium mortar that's also hidden. We've got a veteran medium machine gun, which is also hidden. We've got yet another unit of here with a NCO with a submachine gun and a light machine gun that is also hidden. And we have a veteran medium machine gun also hidden on the table.
And there it is. And now, as we get off the table, the Belgians have their reinforcements in two waves. So, coming in right at the start, we're going to have Wave 1, which consists of a heavy howitzer, a suspicious-looking artillery tow, which doesn't actually have a gun. It's just being represented by this wonderful armed tractor. Then we have a medium mortar, a heavy machine gun. That's right, the Belgians do have the word heavy occasionally in their list. We have 7 chasseurs with a BAR and an NCO with an SMG. And we have a regular squad of infantry with a BAR and an NCO with an SMG. Then in Wave 2, to be coming on at a later time, we have a medium anti-tank gun, we have an anti-tank rifle, we have an artillery observer with his little friend, we have a first lieutenant with his little friend, we have a sniper, again with a little friend, we have 7 more chasseurs, the same setup as the other squad, and then we have a grenadier squad, which is just a regular squad, but it has a light mortar in it. So that is the entire Belgian force, and we'll sweep over to the Germans. Okay, what have the Germans got in reserve over here?
They have a unit of Krautschützen with 2 submachine guns and a medium machine gun. We have yet another unit of Krautschützen with a light machine gun and 2 submachine guns. We have a light artillery piece, howitzer. We have a unit of 10 pioneers with 7 submachine guns and a flamethrower. We have a lieutenant with a submachine gun, and then we have a truck. And they're all regular apart from the lieutenant and the pioneers. And the howitzer.
Right, so here's a nice overview of the battlefield. We've got some trees there with some of the Germans lurking in it. Down here we've got a hill, nobody on there. The ruins have been occupied by the Germans. Got this road running all the way across the table, pretty much, towards the objective in the middle, which is this priceless little river crossing. We've got what seems to be a little village here, and the river running through it. And then down here we've got a field which could provide a nice defensive position for some of the Belgians coming on. So, we'll get back to you with the start of the game. So, turn 1 is in the books. The Belgians got quite a lot of their dice early on, so were forced to act, and the T-15 and a couple of the Force Publique in the building fired into these units over here, but couldn't do anything. This machine gun went onto ambush, and then picked its time wisely, waited for this heavy machine gun to emerge onto the battlefield and fired at it and did a point of damage to it, and put a pin on it for that reason. This unit here has a pin on it, which was from that squad up there.
Over here.
That squad there who advanced forward and fired into them, killing one of them. And the only other casualty was just that machine gun crewman. Everything else survived. Over on this side, these guys emerged from their cover because they were countering the threat of the chasseurs who had come onto the table down here next to the artillery that was towed on. They managed to hit them, put a pin on them as you can see, but no casualties there. These here, the mortar, and that's a machine gun, isn't it? They both fired but didn't really have any effect. The mortar tried to fire at this T-15, so if it doesn't move out the way then it'll be easier to hit next time. And most of the German stuff still in reserve over there. Half the Belgian forces still in reserve here. There's the only physically represented casualty over there, the poor chap. So, I'm going to move into turn 2. Okay, part way through turn 2. So, just to sum up what's happened so far, this unit, who advanced from there to shoot into the chasseurs last time, they got very early dice, so pelted away at them with shots and killed 4 of them, which was quite unfortunate, and that meant that when the chasseurs tried to fire back at them, they failed their test and went down. But some units have come on to help out a bit. This unit of chasseurs came on, fired into them, killed some, and this unit, the grenadier unit with the mortar, the light mortar, came in, and I can't remember if they did something as well, but that unit's taken 2 pins, taken some casualties. And over here, the Force Publique have evacuated this building because they were a little bit tired of only having 2 of them able to fire out the window. They got a little bit impatient, so they came out, take up a defensive position behind the wall, attempted to fire into that squad and did nothing. Down here, the heavy machine gun, which has a pin on it, failed its order test, so it couldn't do anything. This unit here has been depleted from gunfire from over there, from that machine gun, I believe. So they are pinned and they've taken quite a few casualties. And at the start of the turn, I believe the mortar over there attempted to fire at the T-15 because it was going to be hitting on 5, so it tried to get that in first, but failed to do anything. Completely missed. The howitzer has come on over there for the Germans. It's only a light one, so I'm not sure how scared I should be of that exactly. So, the Germans still have an awful lot of stuff off the table. The Belgians have taken a few casualties. As you can see down here, the corpse piles piling up, including the artillery spotter, which is quite pivotal. He was in this building here, and he was gunned down mercilessly with an excellent roll from the machine gun over there, which means that the heavy howitzer in the corner is going to have to spend some time moving, so it's reattached itself to the little tractor, which is going to hold it up and reduce its effectiveness overall, I think. So we'll see what happens next. Right, we're still part way through turn 2. There's been some more red-hot sizzling action though. The squad over there in the fields took out this unit entirely of regular Belgians, so these weapons aren't looking quite so shielded anymore, but the mortar chose that time to fire back and actually got 6, so direct hit into that squad there. It only caused 1 casualty, but it is really focused in on them now, so if they get to move out the way next time, that'll be very beneficial for them. If they don't, they could be toast. Over into the middle here, and I was really thinking that the veteran upgrade on this T-15 was an excellent idea because it has to take an order test every time it advances, and of course it still failed. So it didn't want to move forward and then still shoot. That's far too complicated for that commander. And then this truck came on and unloaded this big pile of Germans with a flamethrower, which fired directly into the T-15, however only managed to pin it, which isn't too big of a deal at all. And then the flamethrower ran out of fuel as well. So not great from them. And there, that little dude as well has popped out into this building here. You may notice that some bikes have come on as well. They've made their way halfway across the table in one fell swoop, making their way towards this line of Belgians here, supporting that heavily beaten up squad of Germans there. And I believe that's it for now, so I'll get back to sum up the end of this turn. Okay, to finish off turn 2, those Germans there decided they didn't feel like joining in the battle right now. Maybe there's a beer festival going on just off the table that they've decided to attend. The Belgians, however, had quite a nice end to the turn. First of all, the less exciting stuff, the artillery was towed up onto the hill, so it can potentially start firing at people at some point during the game, just not yet. Down here, the sniper came on, and him and his little friend took aim at this squad here, put another pin on them, killed another one, so they're not looking in the best of shape at all. And as we swing over here, the artillery observer has come on and he's inside that building, so he's got a nice field of view out that way and that way for when he's required. Down here, the anti-tank rifle came on and took aim over there at the machine gun and did a point of damage and a pin to it. And I believe that was everything. So we're going to be moving on to turn 3, and there are a few really pivotal areas. These guys are very close together, so going first there would be nice. Those guys are going to really want to move because a mortar's going to be hitting them on 2s if they don't. And down here, what can this squad actually do before they get completely butchered by all these chasseurs? We shall see. So we're partway into turn 3 and it's been quite eventful, so a little bit of summing up now. The mortar, who was praying to go first, did it successfully, but then completely failed to hit that squad. So I don't know whether they just stuck their thumb in the end of the mortar or what, because they were perfectly zoned in on them, had them in their sights, and could not hit them for beans. But then, over here, the chasseurs went early as well, and they had a little bit more fortune. They went into that heavily pinned squad there, completely butchered them, being veteran tough fighters, as you'd expect. So this side is looking very, very Belgian, with only those bikes coming in, and those hidden, well, kind of hidden, but not officially hidden, in the woods. Those weapon teams there. In the middle, it's all happened as well. The Force Publique took some shots into the German squad there, that have now moved, put some pinning on them, but then they got gunned down in retaliation. Not quite to a man, but then they lost half the squad, and they decided, we don't really fancy this fight anymore, so they've run away. The artillery observer in this building has called in a strike right there, where that big orange dice is resting, so potentially it could be bad news for all those German units in a minute. And, as you can see, this lane has opened up nicely because the truck has gone away. They've opened up the lane of fire for the howitzer to shoot at the T-15, because there's not much left that can damage it on the German side. So, we shall see how that turns out. A lot of these units over here, for example, this mortar unit, and the sniper took aim at the bikes, but failed to do anything. And I believe that's it for now, so we'll be back in a minute. Right then, we're at the end of turn 3, so to sum up everything else that happened. The machine gun over there fired into its rival machine gun here, put some more damage on it, and there was only one guy left, and he was so terrified that he decided to run away, even though he's got all his mates nearby. How embarrassing. Over here, the lieutenant's little friend decided to pop out from behind the building and try and shoot in through the window of that building, but missed, and the guy in there was so spooked by that he's decided voluntarily to go down. And this lane of fire that was opened up for the howitzer to fire at the T-15 was fruitless because it missed. And prior to that, the medium anti-tank gun tried to shoot at it in a preemptive strike, and that also missed. And these bikes over here moved forward, and they fired into the small squad of chasseurs that had run from that position over there to shield their unharmed brethren, and they were wiped out by a hail of bullets. And I believe, yes, one other thing, those bikes again failed to come on. I don't know what they're doing just south of the battlefield, but it must be a lot of fun because they don't want any piece of this action. So, it's all going to get very juicy in a minute because we've got the potential for an artillery strike right there. And then we're going to have to start thinking about that central objective pretty soon as well, because we're halfway into the game now. Partway through turn 4, and the first thing, the artillery over here, had a nice clear shot at its rival howitzer, took a shot straight down the sights, but missed. Oh dear. Which then allowed these bikes to come over here and try and stop the howitzer from doing anything useful during the game. They took an awful lot of shots into it, but only killed one man from point blank range in the side. Oh dear, oh dear. The medium anti-tank gun attempted to shoot at the same target, and also missed. Obviously. I'm not sure if I've ever hit with that thing. Down here the chasseurs went as fast as they could into the ruins to protect themselves. And let's see what else has gone down here. I tried to fire with the mortar and the anti-tank rifle. I'm pretty sure they both missed, but the mortar would have had a nice shot at them next time. Unfortunately, the machine gun shot them down, shot 2 of the crew members, and the other one decided he'd had enough. So I've been failing a lot of those tests to see if the units can stick around after losing some crew, which has not been very nice. And over here, the T-15 moved out of range of the howitzer, hid behind the building, and then took some shots into that squad, did some damage, but they removed all their pins because they successfully assaulted the tank, and they put a pin on it, but weren't able to damage it. And at the start of the turn, the artillery strike was just moved by me a little bit, because couldn't quite roll enough to bring it in yet, but it's still a big threat to everything in this general area. And let's see what the rest of the units are going to do in this turn, shall we? So, the second half of turn 4, and this truck has decided to pull the howitzer into the middle of the fray, try and get a better shot at something, presumably in a minute, put a bit more pressure on this area, which is where these units are hanging around, despite the impending arrival of the artillery strike, which could completely toast everyone, with a bit of luck. Over here, most of these units just did a bit of reshuffling. The artillery observer went up to the top floor to make space for the lieutenant to come in on the bottom floor. And I believe we already discussed the wiping out of the various weapons here. So it's just the anti-tank rifle there, looking very lonely. Over here, though, the sniper fired into the bikes, knowing that they probably wouldn't be able to, or they wouldn't want to get out of its range, because that would take them far away from the action. And they used their runaway move to surround the little tow tractor, which means that it's going to be removed at the end of the turn. There's nothing it can do there. So it went down firing, though, as you can see, just had a quick spit out the window, which had no effect, sadly. And it's looking a little bit congested with a lot of Germans around the middle. There's still quite a few Belgians surviving, though, especially if those bikes continue to not arrive like they did in this turn. I think that's 3 turns now they haven't come in. So, let's see what happens in turn 5. Hopefully some artillery. Okay, so the artillery strike, beautifully aimed by the Belgian forces. Well, sadly not, because they turned their back for 1 minute and a German spy crept into the artillery aiming lounge and decided, you know what, I'm going to move it a little bit over here, kind of on this squad's head. And it didn't actually kill a huge amount of them, but it did put a lot of pins on them. And the sniper, though, unfortunately, who was here, took the full brunt of an artillery shell. So he exploded, so did his friend. And then these guys, that mortar was trained on them from last time, and successfully hit them on a 5. So killed another, that was half the unit, and they've been pinned so much they've had enough of the fight, which has been the story for most of my units in this game. They just take enough damage and they've had enough. So, still quite a lot of Germans left. And then after that, my artillery decided, you know what, I've got an excellent shot at that truck there, on a 3. It's the best chance it's ever had of hitting something, and of course it rolled a 1. A 2 would have been less embarrassing, but it had to be a 1, didn't it? It's so demoralising. So it's not looking too healthy for the Belgians at the moment, but they can still turn it around. They've still got a few troops left. We've come to the end of turn 5. The T-15, you may have noticed, is down and pinned all of a sudden. That's because after it fired its machine gun into the unit that was there, then it was assaulted by this unit, and they actually managed to do superficial damage and immobilise it, which is not very nice at all. It doesn't sound very superficial to me, actually. That unit of bikes did manage to make it onto the battlefield, finally, so they've come up and they peppered the chasseurs with some shots, as did that unit, because they're looking like my only hope at the moment. So they're down to the last 4 men. They've got a couple of pins on them. And I've still got these big guns up on the hill surviving. The bikes decided to ignore them, so we'll see if that comes back to bite them in a minute. And over here, I've still got the anti-tank rifle alive. There's a lot of Germans though, so I'm thinking the best I can hope for is a draw if we get turn 7 and I manage to survive to reach the objective by the end. So, we shall see. Turn 6, it wasn't particularly long, so here we go all at once. Mr. Anti-Tank Rifle followed the same path as his comrades that were down here, and they were all killed pretty much by that one medium machine gun. So one of them died, and then he decided he'd had enough, just like everyone else down here, and they've gone as well. Over here, the chasseurs made a break for this building, Because as you can see, there's only one of them left in there. That's because everybody piled their shots into them, including bikes that were there, but we'll get to them in a minute. These guys down here, and the bikes here next to this huge steaming crater. Everybody fired in there. So much pinning going on with that final chasseur NCO. But as long as he's alive, I'm still in with a chance if the game continues. And that was very loud. Sounds of artillery in the background there. And also, just for a little bit of comedy, this light howitzer fired into the rear of the T-15 from point-blank range and missed with a 1. Something that didn't miss for a change. 2 things, actually. The heavy howitzer fired at the bikes who were there. They used their escape move to move this way, but they couldn't escape from his line of fire, and then it just toasted all of them. That's why you've got that huge crater right there. And the anti-tank gun, once again, fired into the machine gun hiding in those bushes over there. Did some more damage, but couldn't finish it off. So there's a lot more Germans left, and that's the end of turn 6. The game could just end. If it doesn't, the chasseur, last remaining guy, on his own in there, means that I'm still in with a slight chance if the game doesn't end right now. So let's see if it's all over, shall we? It's a 2.
It's over.
The game is over. So, surveying the battlefield, the Germans have taken quite significant casualties actually. Let's just have a look at who they've lost. Quite a lot of Germans perished in this fight, but not as many as the Belgians lost, sadly. Belgians lost quite a lot of their forces. Most of them are actually just in the hills running away under their own power, to be fair. Most of them aren't actually dead. The immobilised T-15, a single chasseur, and the artillery battery up on the hill are the only things the Belgians have got left. The Germans still have these bikes. A squad there that are doing quite healthily. 2 team weapons in the trees over there, and the machine gun. That chap down there, and the howitzer in the truck. I would say this guy was probably, arguably, man of the match. I think he took out something with almost every shot. So that's nice. Having that extra shot with the German machine guns is quite beastly, isn't it? And for the Belgians, well, the artillery got that nice shot in, but the game was probably all over by that stage. So I'm not sure who'd be the man of the match for them. Possibly that single chasseur, because they did assault and kill a squad, and then made it to the end. All in all, I think I've got some ideas about how to change up the Belgian list to make them a bit more effective. I think the chasseurs need to get into combat, so more of them in trucks is what I'm thinking at the moment, because they're really the only thing that the enemy should be afraid of, I think, probably, in the Belgian list, apart from the things that require a bit more luck, like the artillery, which of course is scary for everybody. But on average, it's probably going to do very little during the game. So, the Germans have held this incredibly important little river crossing, because there's no way in hell anyone could have crossed at any other point on this little stream. So the passage through this Belgian village has been claimed by the Germans, which unfortunately has allowed them to take over Belgium. So there we go, an accurate representation of World War II we've got there. A few Belgians left, but not enough to stop the German advance. So, shall we get the official left-handed handshake on camera?